I want to start it off by saying when it comes to Diddy, Sean P. Diddy Combs, y'all, I pray to the Most High God that he gets a fair trial. Good morning, beautiful people. Good afternoon, good evening. No matter what time it is, just know this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. As always, God is good, and he is good all the time. We got to get into this conversation, man. And we don't necessarily have to, but I would love to use this as an opportunity to educate the public, because many of us are very confused, misled, and misinformed in regards to the criminal justice system and the institutions that have been placed, in their existence to govern us, right? And how they function. And yes, I pray that he gets a fair trial that is afforded to him by the Constitution, the United States Constitution, which mandates that if you're going to deprive somebody of their life, their liberty, or their property, their freedom, that you have to go through these laid out procedures, these steps, right? And you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person did what you are accusing them of before you could just throw them off into the criminal justice system and continuously make money off of them for the duration of the time that they are incarcerated, right? And to some people, this will seem absurd, right? Like, you'll probably have people out here saying that I'm a Diddy sympathizer, anything of the sort. And you can call it what you want. I don't care, because the Bible says love the sinner, not the sin, right? The Bible also says all have sinned and fell short of God's glory, right? We have seen it in the Bible, okay? For those of us that read it, and even those of us who have heard the stories, we grew up listening to the story about when Jesus was approached, right? And they said, Jesus, this lady, she's accused of committing adultery. And according to the laws of the laws of the land and what you permitted, that adulterers are to be stoned. And Jesus said, ye without sin cast the first stone. And not one individual threw anything at the lady. Jesus even asked her, where are your accusers, after they had all walked off? They were nowhere to be found. So Jesus told her to go on about your business, but sin no more. That's it. Aspire to be someone better, to be something different, to be like me. I know you're going to slip up. You're going to make mistakes. But I just want to put it out there. God don't prioritize sin. He doesn't place these hierarchies onto our sin. He views all sin as equally bad, deemable for death and hell. People fail to realize, because they love to throw up, what about the things in the Bible that are listed as abominations? There are a plethora of things that are listed as abominable unto God. However, lying is one of those things. Being of a haughty, prideful, foolish, and arrogant spirit is an abominable to the Most High. Yet, this is what runs the world. Pride, arrogance, haughtiness. People who think that they are above reproach. They think can't nobody correct them. They think they too good. They forget about their humble beginnings. But back to Diddy, man, because you about to, I feel the Lord moving, I'll tell you that. I'm not trying to preach to nobody, but I want to let you know that although I personally believe that Diddy has done a lot of the things that he are accused of, I also believe that there's some things that he's accused of that he has not done. I don't know. I was not there. I can't prove anything. You know who was there? Who will show every single one of us, every single thing that we have done in our life? The big man above. The Father above. And so I just want to provide an objective lens when it comes to viewing P. Diddy's, Sean Combs, however you want to say his name, his case, because Kanye West said something not too long ago. And he said, and this is not quote, but he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that I'm a billionaire. And if they are doing this to me, a billionaire, what do you think they'll do to y'all? And I wholeheartedly agree, because a lot of us have been falsely blinded, and we've been wooed, swooned into believing, and swindled into believing that the things that we see out here is for what it is. It's nothing but smokes and mirror, right? We've been forced to believe that having representation is supposedly somehow bettering our lives. And when I say our lives, I'm talking about like society as a whole, which includes the Commonwealth, which is predominantly the poor people, Our lives are bettered when positions of power and spaces of wealth have our representation. And I love busting bubbles. And I would love to share with you that having representation does not exempt you from the harms and the ills that are set out here to snatch you up and drag you down for whatever reason, whether it's greed, you know what I'm saying, just pure hate. It don't matter what the reason is. Having someone that you believe look like you in that position ain't gonna stop you. These people are just dolled up versions of you who through smokes and mirrors, we have been lullabied into believing that these people are wealthy, they're well established, they're so high esteemed, and that life has just gotten better for society as a whole, especially the poor people. We're not where we used to be, even though we have been at the core in the same position that we've been for at least 5+ decades. Our attire looks different. The technology that we have is different. So we believe through these tangible things, these tangible aspects, that life has just somehow gotten better for people as a whole, even though the same people that were lacking access to certain resources and various resources, still they ain't got it. They're for generations. I mean, you can date back to at least about 100 years. If you go to 200 years, you go any further to the pre-existence of America, colonial American times, even prior. I mean, they were poor. And then several generations later, we're still in the same bracket. We're forced to believe like, oh, because you have a little bit more access to the tools, the advanced tools that society has developed, you have ascended in society. It's blinding. It's mind-blowing. But this ties into Diddy because, like, going back to Kanye, he said it, I'm a billionaire. They're doing it to me. What make you think they won't do it to you? Diddy, another billionaire. They doing it to him. What makes them think they won't do it to us? Donald Trump is a convicted felon. You see what I'm saying? And although their lives and experiences don't look identical to us, the one thing that is common, that we can find the common ground, is the fact that behind all the garbage, whether you look at the convictions, whether you look at, the people that's pulling the strings, right? That's orchestrating all of this, all the people that is powering that, literally backing that, are the same powers that are diminishing us back here in the Commonwealth, parts of society. It's all one and the same. It's these higher, status folks, these people that's viewed as elitists. And it's interesting to me because you have some millionaires and multimillionaires who equate themselves to poor people, although they have a nice house with, a pool in the background, or however people perceive wealth, right? They have these, cars, they can travel whenever they want to. They don't have to work a traditional 9 to 5. However you see wealth, despite these people having these things, they still view themselves as impoverished and beholden to someone above them. I mean, there's a saying, the rich are beholden to the richer. When you depend on man to pull you up and to get you to where you want to get, whether that's wealth, status, fame, all that jazz, baby, it's going to come with some turmoil. It's going to come with some sorrow. The Bible tells it. The Bible says it. Jesus said his blessings don't come with sorrow. But when you find yourself and it's like, oh everything just seems to be getting better. I got more opportunities. I have more finances. I'm able to buy more tangible things. I don't want for nothing. But then you still find sorrow. God's blessings don't come with sorrow. But we're going to dive into Diddy here because, like I said, they do it to him. They're going to do it to all of us. Diddy case, he is charged with racketeering, right? He's charged with racketeering. And the truth is that it's not even just racketeering. He's charged with like prostitution, human trafficking, and then they don't even specify it as human trafficking. They call it commercial sex work, but they say he's human trafficked, commercial sex workers, which again, I want to steer back to this. I find it interesting, right? When you juxtapose the terminology commercial sex worker with prostitution, right? At the core, everything is the same. Everything is the same. Sex, sex. Sex for money, sex for money. Clientele base, right? There's a transactional, transfer going on. So everything at the core is the same, but the nuances, these are the things that kind of stick out. And it's like, oh, well, the prostitutes are more viewed as like prostitutes because they are viewed as like lesser, quality. They're viewed as more for impoverished, like clientele base. These are the people that are probably selling, whatever for $40, butt, head. I don't know the numbers, but they're selling it for numbers that's smaller. You could probably pick them up off the side of the street. They just got a wig thrown on top of their head. They might not even be that well, like, in hygiene, maybe missing a couple of teeth or whatever. But then when you look at who they consider commercial sex workers, they have a more higher status of, group of people that make up their clientele. These workers, these sex workers tend to look a lot cleaner. They're not missing teeth. They actually has an aesthetic that is more acceptable to society's, beauty standards and whatnot. And so it's interesting how terminology starts to switch up depending on who or what geographic location you dealing with, or even different from that financial background, right? But Diddy, he's involved in basically, racketeering, human trafficking, and, his criminal matter has became, or at least was initiated based solely off the fact that civil charges was brought up, right? Cassie initiated a civil action, or a civil suit against him, and he ended up, paying her off to kind of just get her out of the way or whatnot. But in the midst of all that, a video came forward that supposedly displays him, and I say supposedly for many reasons, but we'll get into that later, but that supposedly displays him, beating her up in a hallway wrapped in a towel, right? And it's interesting because it's like, one, Diddy has been alleged to be involved in so many criminal matters, yet several times things have been covered up, right? But all of a sudden now, there's more of a desire to want to convict him for the wrongdoing that he's committed. And so this is why I say that, I don't really want to get too wrapped up into the specifics of Diddy and the things that he's alleged, because we've all seen that there's so much content out here, but I want to tie it into the stuff that matters to him as a person. As like I told you, he's covered under the Constitution, but us as it pertains to us in our, movement around the criminal justice system or even civil courts, because ideally they're the same, but there's some nuances here. And so the thing that I want to get into is, like I said earlier, is that I hope and pray that Diddy receives a fair trial, right? And that it consists of him having due process. And the reason why I say I hope and pray he has a fair trial, because right now it don't look like that. Right now, it looks like he's convicted by media, right? Like, media has dumped all this content out that basically paints him in such a diabolical, sadistic, mischievous, evil. I mean, the adjectives are never ending, right? But they paint him in such a bad light. And then when you take into consideration Sean P. Diddy's his publicity and his access to people, and the fact that his, all of the things that pertains to him has been disseminated into the public so quickly and so widely, that it really makes you believe, like, where can he go within the United States where he can literally receive a fair trial, where if this man decided to go, maintain his right to take a jury trial, where the jury will be able to look at him objectively and not have been tainted by, the content that has been dumped to media, with the videos of him beating up, Cassie allegedly, from the several civil suits coming forward that's alleging him of, doing all types of harm to them, that includes like some violent things like sexual assault, just straight out physical assault, to even like conspiracy, conspiring to harm people, murdering people. Like, there's all types of stuff that has been put out there, and I'm making it worse even just listing the things, right? But all these things are out there. How can we expect anyone, whether he takes a jury, trial, or he waives his rights to a jury trial and goes towards having a bench trial, and he goes before a judge and has his, his case decided by a judge, how can we expect him to be viewed objectively under the circumstances that exist already, right? I mean, we already see that he was denied bail, even though, he got wind of the police potentially wanting to make an arrest, and it was kind of alluded to that he was going to turn himself in, but he stayed in the vicinity. So when he was apprehended, he pretty much complied with everything. He turned over not only his, but his family's passports, right? He seemed to, just be going along with everything. And like I said, he's complying. Yet a judge has denied him bail, bond, several times, repeatedly, right? And then it makes you question, like, well, what are the mitigating and aggravating factors that you're looking at? Because in order for a judge to rule to have a person sit in jail in what they call pretrial detention, they have to look at the full picture, right? They have to look at what they call mitigating, which is these factors that they look at that lessens the likelihood of them sitting in pretrial detention, and the aggravating factors, which increases the likelihood of, one sitting in pretrial detention. And mitigating factors could be things like the fact that he complied, right? The fact, or, a person not having any criminal history. Now, I do not know whether or not Sean P. Diddy Combs has a criminal history, but one thing I am partially aware of the fact is that as of late, he has not really been convicted of anything. Like, being arrested of things don't necessarily mean anything, because you could be arrested for just about everything. I mean, you have people being arrested for just being poor. Like, they're freaking just sitting in tents, you know, in some woods off of a bridge in a, you know, a very populated city, and it looks ugly to society and to the mayor, and they don't want these homeless people just adding, you know, to the the dilapidation of the city. So they're like, hey, just get them off, get them out of here. Where else they're going to put them? Not into these facilities that's for homeless shelters and all this. There's not enough of them. That's a whole nother thing. So ideally, if they're not released, which they're just displaced, moved to another location, making another location, you know, be where the mayor or whomever feel like, oh my goodness, this person is just, they're sitting here loitering, they're laying around loitering, they're making the place look, you know, like filth. Instead of just leaving them to just hop around and get several complaints, they arrest them. So you literally could get arrested for anything. You've heard of people getting arrested while protesting. You know, there's things called obstructing government administration, which is the grounds for that is so low that you could get arrested for that for just about, when I say you could get arrested for anything, is this. So him being arrested is not enough to say, you know, him previously being arrested is not enough to say that he should be sitting pretrial detention, right? And if he has a criminal record, because things that they look at is history, right? Okay, you have a criminal record, but how, like, what is the history of your criminal record, right? When was the last time, and what is the duration between the times that you committed crimes? So if Sean Diddy Combs wasn't convicted of, we'll say, something as simple as a misdemeanor since 1992, and here we are in 2024, where thus far he hasn't been convicted of anything, those aren't aggravating factors. That's not, you can't sit here and be like, well, his criminal history, yeah, but the duration and the time between him being convicted of a crime and being brought before y'all again, accused of a crime, it's so drastic that we could say, like, he could be a rehabilitated man, and this is just a coincidence that he's accused of these things. You see what I'm saying? Mitigating factors could be, and I know I'm going back and forth from mitigating and aggravating. Remember, aggravating is getting you up. You going 100. You bothered, right? They like, nah, you pretrial detention. Mitigating is like, you know, he has a family, you know, I mean, he is the parent and a single parent to some 17-year-old children, you know, and he has, you know, business endeavors. I mean, these are all things that could be viewed as mitigating factors. Even character witnesses. I mean, we've seen that before, you know, with Ashton Kutcher and his lady Mila Kunis and all these other celebrities that came forward to back this guy who was accused of some wild stuff in court, and they came in with their character witnesses. So there's several things that they can look at, but it's interesting that the judge decided to deny bail back to back to back. Like, nah, bro. And it's interesting because people say this is a new phenomenon. One, I want to show y'all what due process is for those who don't know what it is, okay? Because you need to know these things. So the due process basically is, it's a standard that is in the Constitution, right? And it shows up in numerous amendments, most notably the 14th and the 15th. The 5th is where it says that the federal government, you know, they basically cannot deprive anyone of their life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And then the 14th Amendment basically says the same thing. It's called the Due Process Clause, which describes a legal obligation of all states, right? It basically states that the government must operate within the legalities, and they have to provide fair procedures. So fair procedures, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean? Well, that's basically, it's like I told you, it's not necessarily saying it's the substance. It's not saying that when you go to court, this is the type of, you know, the quality, you know, of content that you're supposed to endure. It's basically saying like, no, bro. If you're going to arrest somebody, if you're going to seize somebody, you're going to search somebody, you're going to take anything from them, search, seize their property, anything pertaining to them, you have to go through all of these steps. And if you slip up and you do not go by these steps, you are violating, you are infringing upon their constitutional rights. Therefore, you have to let them go. You can't infringe upon people's rights. That's basically what due process is, right? And all I'm saying is that I hope that Diddy gets due process. Well, what is due process? Like I told you, it consists of several clauses. We'll look at the 14th Amendment. So we see with due process, right? We've already established that the 5th Amendment is one of those amendments where it creates several rights that pertains to everyone in the United States, whether you are born or a naturalized citizen, right? And that takes us into the number 14. We're going to start with number 14, where the 14th Amendment addresses many aspects of citizenship and the rights of citizens, where it says the most commonly used and frequently litigated is the equal protection of the laws, right? So basically in section 1, it says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. So we're going to stop there with that sentence just to break it down for where you understand it. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, that includes those who are born here, naturalized. Now, when it comes to definition, it varies depending on your source, right? But I encourage you to look at the bare minimum, go to Google, type in Google Scholar, and look up peer-reviewed scholarly articles that pertains to, you know, this type of information where it's like studies into constitutional right violations and such like that. You can even look at some of the cases because all of this information that I'm reading to you is posted in the description, so you can come back and reference yourself. But a lot of these times, these links include, see down here, Plessy versus Ferguson, Plyer versus Doe. They include court cases, and they tend to be landmark cases, so very important, prominent cases, right, that controls a great aspect of, you know, people's rights. It tells like, this is what the government is supposed to do. This is what citizens, you know, supposed to do, or have the power to, you know, or have, this is what citizens have the rights to. And so go to the links and look into this yourself. But naturalized it includes people who, even our immigrants, these are people who are in the States, right? Because if an immigrant commits a crime, the like on the caption of the petition, right, written by the prosecutor, is going to say the people of whatever state, or if it's a federal, they're going to say the people of the United States, you know, but they're going to have that jurisdiction on it versus, and then the defendant's name. So they're going to have the person's name. So this includes immigrants because they work here, they reside here, even if it's only temporary, right? And even if you don't view their jobs as legitimate, whatever your perceptions are to immigrants and immigration, it is what it is. They are still covered under naturalized. That includes also, you know, the documented folks, the people with green cards and all this other stuff. They have work permits and school visas and all this other stuff, right? This also includes them. And this also includes people who were, you know, descendants of prior enslaved folk. They're the freedmen. And then there's several generations and generations of children, right? And so as long as you are within that jurisdiction, whether it's that state, I mean, if you in the state of anywhere, New York, Minnesota, you know what I'm saying, North Carolina, if you in any state within the United States, federally you get charged, you got the United States coming for you. You see, that's the jurisdiction. So all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any laws which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of those laws. So, the second sentence, which is kind of hefty, we're going to break down. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States. They can't make laws that violates your constitutional rights. They can't make laws that violates you, right? So they also cannot deprive, they can't. No state can deprive you of your person, your life, you know what I'm saying, your liberty, nor your property without due process. Remember, we said due process is the standards. It says these are the protocols. These are the steps you must take before you try to strip any of these people of their freedom, liberties, their, searching a person and all this wild stuff, right? Without due process. It's a standard. These are the steps you got to take. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of those laws. So that includes immigrants. They reside here. You can't deny them equal protection of the laws. They here. It's mandated by this Constitution, the 14th Amendment. This is the 14th, baby. So here in the Fifth Amendment, the part that we're going to mostly focus on is where it starts to, it tells you that no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless you're presented by an indictment of a grand jury, and then it tells you in the cases where there's exceptions, right? But then it also says, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. This is the double jeopardy clause. So this is in the Fifth Amendment. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against themselves. So it also talks about self-incriminating right in the Fifth Amendment. This is why people say, I plead the Fifth. You remain shy. You could choose to remain silent, right? Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, this is interesting because this is what I feel like they're pushing Diddy into doing, right? Diddy's whole situation is weird in the sense that people think it's peculiar. It's not peculiar. What the things that Diddy is going through is what your everyday average citizen goes through, that is dragged through the criminal justice system, that goes through jail, right? Majority of the people that are arrested, they sit in pretrial detention, which basically means that they are sitting awaiting trial in jail instead of out here in society. And a lot of the times these people are sitting in pretrial detention without ever seeing a judge. So it's obvious if they ain't see no judge, they dang sure ain't see no lawyer. Because in order for you to see a lawyer, your lawyer has to push for you to be brought before a judge. You can write what they call a writ of habeas corpus, which basically is a legal documentation that says, hey, you got to present this body before a judge to basically rule that their arrest was legal. And if it was legal, okay, well, now you need to decide whether or not this person should sit in pretrial detention, which we established with Diddy, that there's all these the mitigating and aggravating factors that they take into consideration when they're deciding you are to stay in the pretrial detention. So it's not no new phenomenon, but we see in the Fifth Amendment that it's mandated that you have probable cause, right? Before you are deprived of your life and liberty, right? Because it says that in this amendment. It says it right here in this amendment. And what I think is strange is because, like, we know But yeah, I think it's strange because people try to make it seem like it's peculiar, but it's not peculiar. This happens all the time. And then we see, looking at the amendments, right, that you are supposed to have probable cause before you can see somebody, which is depriving them of their life, liberty, their property, their freedom. You have to go through due process, which is a whole proceeding before you can even strip them of them. You can't just do it off on a whim, which seems to be happening with Sean P. Diddy Combs, because the judge just ruled to deny him bail with no legitimate reason except to say that, well, he seems to be a danger to society. Why? Because of claims that has not been proven in a court of law against him. Like, the whole point of these claims going through the civil case is because Cassie more than likely spoke to her lawyers and they told her, you are better off trying to sue him in a civil court than presses charges against him criminally, because there is a different standard of proof required in the two courts. In criminal matters, the standard of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person that you are accusing did what you are accusing them of. And it's not necessarily Cassie, but it would be the prosecutor who would technically represent Cassie, since they claim to represent the people, which they don't represent the people. It is a misnomer for the government. They really represent themselves, because we see with Marcellus Williams, the man who evidence had came forward that exonerated him from the death penalty, the not even just the death penalty, but the conviction that was given to him, in addition to him being placed onto death row. It exonerated him, yet the governor still opted to have that man murdered by the state. You see, even though the alleged victims, the supposedly victims, which was the Marcellus was accused of harming this family's, loved one, they told the state, we don't want you to kill him. Please stop this. Stop it. And they still went forward and motherfucking murdered Marcellus Williams. So obviously, they're not for the people. But in this sense, they try to make it seem like they for the people. Like I said, it's a misnomer, right? So it's the people. They represent the people. It'll be the prosecutor who has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Diddy did what they accused him of, right? Or Cassie, in this instance, accused him of. But they won't be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So they go to civil court, because the standard of the burden of proof in civil court is way more lenient than the standard of proof in criminal court. In freaking civil court, the burden of proof is literally the preponderance of evidence, which I'm about to show y'all these definitions right after I get up off of me. I'm gonna show you just briefly so you can see them. And like I told you, the links is in the bottom of the description. Like, comment, share, subscribe, But a preponderance of evidence, which basically means by an accumulation of evidence, it's reasonable to believe that what you're accusing this person of doing, that they potentially have done it. And you only have to prove it slightly more than 50%. Literally 50.01%, and you win a civil matter. That's all you have to prove. Criminal, the preponderance of evidence ain't gonna fly. You can't just prove 50%. You have to prove where people don't even have doubt that this person did it for them to be convicted. So it would behoove her to go to civil court, and every other person that has went to civil court. But in this instance, and this is what I tell people, is that the government is building a fishing, like they're building a case through fishing expedition. It's insane to me. It's really insane hearing people constantly say the government, the feds, they won't be, coming after Diddy if they didn't really have a case against him. They won't be coming after him. They didn't really have a case. Never. The feds ain't nothing but the police. There's less them than we. There's literally like less than 100,000 police officers total. That includes these town, villages, these major cities. The Fed cops is a total. Even when you start to include motherfucking DEC, Border Patrol, there ain't enough of them. They just like everybody else. These people ain't got no solid nothing. They go on a fishing expedition. The police of the job, or the police of the job of the police is to throw a bunch of charges on you in hopes that the prosecutor could get one of them to stick. That way you are convicted of at least one. That's why it's not uncommon to see people dump with a bunch of counts. I won't be surprised if Diddy, by the time he at the end of this, and even now, so Kanye West, he's being dragged through civilly. So you know it's going to cross over to a criminal at some point. Fishing expedition. But these people, it's literally, it's in the civil court because they can't prove anything. So they wait while they're in the civil court and they say, let's see all the evidence that builds up in the civil court, and we'll see if we can get some of this over here, because now they're going to try to use the evidence. Then they're going to talk to not only Cassie, but whatever, you know, each lawsuit that comes before them, the feds are going to go to these individuals and say, hey, can you testify for us in regards to what you've experienced at the hands of Diddy, what you've seen, so we can lock him up? It's a fishing expedition. They ain't got no case. They're trying to build one as this goes along. Like the same thing they do with us down here. When you see them in your, you know, local black communities, because you know we over policed here. I mean, it's not uncommon. I see so many unmarked cars, state troopers. Heck, we be seeing towns and villages. These small, tinky, winky police departments running around in our neighborhood, in addition to the county sheriffs. We don't need all that when we got a local police department, and our local police department is bigger than all those police departments. And it's not even 1,000 of them. You see what I'm saying? And there's about 200,000 people that live here. It's not enough of them. But anyway, it's fishing expedition. It's always been like this in regards to whether it's the courts or the law enforcement. This is why I tell people don't accept pleas. And this is about to take me on a whole nother tangent. But the court, because they are underfunded and understaffed, they don't have the resources to process all the arrests, all the cases. So that's why they push for y'all to mother freaking throw in pleas. Accept a guilty plea. Accept this plea bargain. That's why they coerce you. It's better to convince you to take a guilty plea, so that way you waive all your rights. I ain't got to do my job. And you just made my job a lot easier. And you added to my conviction status, because you have to realize every single motherfucker prosecutor in the United States, Western countries, period, their conviction rates are built on the backs of plea bargains, which over 90% of criminal cases that occur in the United States, it don't matter where you're looking at, town, village, don't matter. They all have at least 90% resolved by plea bargains. These niggas ain't got no case. That's why I be telling people, go to trial. Make these people prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did what they accusing you of. Diddy, I think you jacked up for all the stuff that I really think you did, but these niggas gotta prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did what you accused of. They can't just arrest you because they don't like you. They can't just arrest you because some niggas came forward and say, he did this to me. Okay, nigga, can you prove it, Mr. or Miss Prosecutor? Because that's your whole motherfucking job. Whole motherfucking job. You're on a fishing expedition. People talking about they got a case. No, they don't. Did they have a case when they motherfucking locked up motherfucking Dion? No, nigga. They don't never have no case. This is why they just throw stuff on you. They did it with Trump. Just throw a bunch of stuff on him in hopes that something stick. And what's the job of the police? To go do the work for the prosecutor and try to dig up something that they could potentially use as evidence. And a lot of the stuff that they use as evidence is circumstantial. Let's get into these definitions. So probable cause. Probable cause is what's needed to search or seize your person. They can't arrest you. They can't deny you of life, liberty, and freedom and your property, right? Without due process, which consists of probable cause. Well, what is probable cause? It's right here, right? It refers to a reasonable basis for believing that a crime may have been committed, which this is for an arrest, or that evidence of a crime is present in the place to be searched for the search. Probable cause is needed for a search and a seizure, which is an arrest, okay? They can't just arrest you and search you on a whim. If they come up to you and ask you, can I search you? Say no. Because then if they do it anyways, you can sue them. Because 9 times out of 10, you can't get criminal charges on them. Why? Because the state of the proof is so motherfucking high. The burden of proof is so high. But you could just, with preponderance of evidence, let's look at preponderance of evidence just real quick. Refers to the evidentiary standard necessary for a victory in a civil case. It proves a proposition by the preponderance of evidence that requires demonstrating the proposition is more likely true than not. So that sounds like a whole mother hot mess, okay? So let me just basically make it, digestible and say preponderance of evidence is a standard that requires demonstrating that what you are claiming is more likely true than not. And then you only have to prove over 50%, which it comes down right here. And it tells you about the case, right? Boom, 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 boom. That's why the link is down there. So y'all can come back to this to see it for yourself. You can look at the cases yourself. But it described, in this case, Union Pacific Railroad Company versus Union Pacific Railroad Company versus State Board of Equalization described the preponderance of the evidence standards as the weight of the evidence, meaning more than 50% proof, which basically, literally is 50.01, slightly over 50%. You ain't even got to go 51, And then we had motherfreaking beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Remember we said with the Fourth Amendment, you have the right as a person, as a people, to be secured in your person, houses, your papers, and effects. This is your effects. These niggas can't be running your pockets, your book bag, your purses, your sneaker, your car. This takes me into another video, but I just want to throw it out there. If you get arrested concurrent to a traffic violation, the police can't search your entire vehicle, baby. If they arrest you, they motherfucker, they view or they believe, beyond, or not beyond a reasonable doubt, but they believe that, based on this little small burden of proof, this little reasonable suspicion, they believe that you may have committed a crime. If they remove you out of the car to arrest you, they can't come back into the car to search your car. If they say, for example, they pull you over and you're in a state where weed is illegal, or here in New York, weed, you can smoke it, but you can't smoke and drive. So if the police be like, I smell weed, I need to search you, right? If they don't remove you from the car, because if they remove you from the car, they can't search your entire car. But if they don't remove you from the car, they can't search your trunk. They can only search within your proximity, where you can reach. If you're a tall person like me, you got long limbs, so you might could reach the back, the back seat, maybe the flow. But your trunk, you can't, the average person can't reach the trunk from the driver's seat. And then once they remove you from your vehicle, because the search is supposed to be incongruent to these police officers' safety. They're supposed to feel like, they're searching you in order to make sure that you don't have any contraband or anything that could harm them and or yourself. So that's the whole point of the search, right? They can't just go on this fishing expedition. They can't do that. So if they remove you from your vehicle, you are no longer within the proximity of their vehicle. So technically they're not in danger. So they can't search your vehicle. So that's just a little tidbit. But we're back to the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Searches. Let me check your book bag. No. You can say no. And if they do it anyway, sue them. Seizures. That's an arrest. They can't arrest you without a warrant. They talking about arresting you. Where's your warrant? A lot of these police officers, they started to have body-worn cameras on them. Some of them, they pick and choose when they can turn them on, whether the audio is on or off, all this while. So they could turn on the video, turn off the audio, turn on the audio, turn off the video, all this wild stuff. But always, just if you're going to say anything, just articulate. Do you have a warrant? You know what I'm saying? Like, am I under arrest? You got to specify. What are you doing? What am I under arrest for? Stuff like that. We're going to say anything. Because the Fourth Amendment protects you to be secure in your person, your house, your papers, and effects from unreasonable, unlawful searches and seizures, and shall not be violated. And no warrants shall be issued. Not one warrant can be issued without probable cause. And then the police have to establish probable cause. Then the police got to take their probable cause to a judge or a magistrate, whatever is in the position of a judge, which I think is crazy because, you know, in a lot of these towns and villages, especially rural America, a lot of the judges aren't really judges. These aren't people that passed the state bar exam, went to law school and passed the state bar exam. They just Cousin Joe sitting in that position. Interesting. But then major cities like we subjected to the motherfucking people that's required to have little pieces of paper. It's interesting. But they all do the same job. But warrants can't be issued without probable cause. The police got to take their probable cause, go to the judge, tell the judge, show the judge, hey, this is my probable cause. You know, if they want to arrest you, they got to tell them the probable cause of the crime that they believe that you committed in order for the judge to be like, okay, this makes sense. I'm going to sign it. Because that's what they mean by oath of affirmation. The judge is signing it. But in regards to a search, these warrants have to specifically state what it is to be searched, whether it's the person or the place to be described. You got to describe it to a T. You can't just say the person's house. Nah, you ain't about to go on no searching, fishing expedition. What are you looking for? What room? What area of that room? See, these things, they matter. And then we brought up circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is what I said a lot of these cases are built upon in general, all the way around the board. Us little people and the people up top. In this regard, when it comes to Diddy, when it comes to Kanye West, but when it comes to Diddy, these people are literally using circumstantial evidence. What they're doing, they don't have a case. Like I tell you, the feds don't have a case. Stop saying they have a case. We put too much oomph and power and respect, and we put too much motherfucking thought and trust in these people to be just these set in stone, well put together, well established, smart, you know what I'm saying, law abiding, impartial, unbiased. And we expect so much of people who are just as raggedy and flaw filled. I mean, full of fallacies, baby. Just the flaw. Imperfection after imperfection. And yet we still expect these people to motherfucking achieve the above and beyond because of some little status, title, accomplishment, or accolade. Lord have mercy. This is why we jacked up. God's people perish for lack of knowledge. Curses any man who put his trust in man. Feds ain't got no case. So what they doing is they waiting on Cassie. They waiting on Lil, I want to say his name is Lil, I don't want to butcher his name, Lil something. He's suing Diddy too. They waiting on people that are suing these people to come forward with the claims that they have against these people. So then they could say, hey, can we utilize your claims, you know, as they fit in this concoction of a mess that we are putting together? Because that's literally what these lawyers do. They don't have nothing. They fishing. They trying to take whatever they can get to make something. Whatever narrative they can put, they're gonna push whatever narrative they can push out of the garbage that they conjure up. Literally. Can we use you and your garbage over here, right? Because this is how they see it. They don't care nothing about you. It's just incriminating another person so they can what? Use their body and make a money, make a dollar. See, the 13th Amendment prohibits slavery except for corporal punishment. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. Once you're convicted, slavery is okay for you because you, government property, you committed a crime, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So as long as you're within the United States, baby, you're convicted of a crime. You become property to the government. You are allowed to be enslaved and make them profit, which is why the incarcerated does so much work out here, building our railroads, keeping our highways clean, doing the landscaping, motherfreaking building the chairs and the desks that we use for our podcasts and our lights and all this stuff. They do all that for little to nothing, just like these immigrants out here. But circumstantial evidence is what they're using. They say, hey, Cassie, hey, little homie, can you come over here with your baggage? Can we use you to be a witness, to give statements, to help us build a case against Diddy? Circumstantial evidence is evidence that is indirect. It does not, on its own, prove a fact and issue, but gives rise to a logical inference. It's just like, oh, you just look at this. Well, this is possible to, happen from this. This is possible that these things are connected. Oh, it is? Okay, well, let's use this. Circumstantial evidence. That's what this is. It don't even have to be true. Conspiracy. I think it's interesting that black people especially are called conspiracy theorists. And then it has such a negative stigma to it, a negative connotation to it. Yet the government is literally the biggest conspiracy theorists known to man. Every criminal case that goes before them that they tried to motherfucking convict people over is built on conspiracies that they have theorized. Would you believe that? But anyways, circumstantial evidence is indirect evidence that does not on its face prove a fact and issue, but gives rise to a logical inference that the fact exists. Circumstantial evidence requires drawing additional reasonable inferences, which are just guesses, fancy ways of saying possibilities that we've guessed in order to support the claim. And that's all. I mean, that's it. That is it. That's it. It's like these things could have really happened to her by him, but there's no justice with man. This is why I say, Lord, please interfere. Make sure this man receives a fair trial, because they do it to them and they're wealthy. They do it to us. This is supposed to be our representation. So nigga, if it's our representation, they hemming him out the fry. What the freak you think they're going to do to us, the people that this nigga represents? Come on. Come on. Anybody who went through the criminal justice system knows what I'm saying. I've been there. I've been there. It's interesting. And like I said, it's interesting with the dichotomy between the terminology that they use describing sex works. All it takes is just, who's your clientele? You clean? Your base or your audience are wealthy people. We'll throw you in with the white collar criminals where they're barely punished. But you blue collar niggas, you dirty prostitutes missing teeth and stuff, having sex and your whole tooth missing. Get in this prison. Make it make sense, baby. They doing the same thing. Just one got teeth, the other one missing some. It's interesting. But how can we expect a fair trial, especially in regards to his case? Because if anybody noticed, the one thing I thought was interesting was when you see the police officers coming out with these tiny boxes. And I'm just like, what the freak are y'all confiscating from this man that fit in these tiny boxes? Like, not even all the lube and baby oil that he was accused of harboring could fit into there, but these tiny boxes. And then I realized, oh, baby, I know exactly what could fit in there. I know exactly what could fit in there. I was looking to see if I had any nearby, but I do. Hard drives, SSDs, these things fit in there, micro SD cards and SD cards and, these motherfreaking, these little jokers, these fit in there. So it's motherfreaking interesting. I'm like, wow, Jesus. What are they taking from him? Gotta be the stuff that they think the judge that denied him bail several times was shaking butt on, you know, in somebody's mouth, and probably married, and it wasn't with his wife. You see what I'm saying? It's interesting. It's very, very interesting. That's why I say fishing expedition. What are y'all really looking for? Are you trying to convict him, or you just want to get what you think he got? Because so many people are involved. This man got bureaucrats, lawyers, judges, police officers, legislators, Congress, you know what I'm saying? People in the executive and judicial branches, all on tape. Shaking booty, clergy, education staff, you know, school, union reps, shaking it, sucking it, doing some wild stuff, man. He got too many people. And then it's not just domestic. This is international. This is global. He got global dirt. It's insane. How can we expect him to get a fair trial with the people that are alleged to be involved, with the names that have already, you know, been presented to the public? I mean, you got people like I don't even want to say their name because they're not even worth it, but people put them on these pedestals like LJ, the basketball player. It's just, y'all, people are weird, okay? But ZJ and his lady, right? He never really says anything. And then mother freaking Jaguar Wright gets on a very, you know, prolific platform. Mother freaking all of a sudden supposedly got his lawyers making threats, telling him, hey, your show is called Uncensored, but we need you to censor what you disseminate to the public, because you're talking about ZJ and his lady. Nah, it's interesting when you got people coming out the woodworks doing things that they never done before. It's interesting. That's all I'm saying. Just making an inference here. You see how I'm, you know, giving you one of these conspiracy theories, the same thing that the police and the government does in regards to criminal matters when they're trying to build a case against you. It's interesting. How do we expect them to get a fair trial with the people that is involved? And then what makes me wonder is like, okay, so, I mean, obviously by the masses, the potential, you know, or the potentiality of selecting jury or jurors for jury it's tainted. It's motherfucking doo-dooed. It has bird droppers all over because it's like I said, it's everywhere. It's pervasive. The content is everywhere, demonizing and criminalizing Jay-Z, whether it's warranted or not. It's out there. And judges are viewed to be impartial and objective. The same thing is expected with your jurors, right? Your jury is expected to be impartial and objective. And then there's expected to be ignorant to your case. But when you're Diddy, in this regard, how can you be? You know, you have to, it makes me wonder, because it's like the things that his lawyer requested was like he was complaining about the living standards there being so terrible. Yeah, it's like that in most places. It doesn't matter if you think these places have been, you know, changed to more modernized dormitorial style, you know, styled facilities. These places are still like detrimental to people's mental health, their physical health, you know what I'm saying, their spiritual health. It tears up their relationships with their families. It enables or it prohibits their jobs. It inhibits their job or their abilities to get a job. It's debilitating, nigga. And then with the stigma that gets attached to it, baby. Not to mention, if you convicted with a drug offense in the United States, I mean, that ruins every opportunity you have for any form of government assistance use, whether it's education, food stamps, because you're poor as a joke, you know what I'm saying? It eliminates everything. Housing. So it's like, it ain't no new phenomenon. This has always applied. Like, they take these rare instances and they make it seem like they blow it up. Like, oh my goodness, this is it's a rarity. No, it's not. It happens on a regular basis. Visit your local jails, you know, visit your local prisons. those living standards aren't great. They're not at all. As a collective, they're terrible. But they like to focus on these onesie twosies that they have put a little bit of money towards to kind of fix it up and, you know, hide the fact, put band-aids on the fact that it's just jacked up. And they make it seem like, oh, this represents all the correctional facilities out here. No, no. The living standard sucks for everybody. The thing I would have tried to do is, as this judge, I would have filed a motion for change of venue. Like, we need to get this case in somewhere remote. Can we get it on the Indian reservation? Like, because I feel like this is the only place he's going to have any form of, like, fairness, maybe, you know. And even that internet access and some media access, it's still accessible to some degree out there. But you got to have it in a remote place where nobody has almost no internet. You got to have it in Alaska, you know, in the middle of the Arctic, where nobody almost lives there, because everybody seems to catch wind of this. And then to me, it's funky because it almost seems like it encourages the possibility of him waiving his rights to go to a trial and face his accusers, waiving his rights for the prosecutor to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did what he's accused of, waives his rights to, like I said, to do anything, all the things that were established by the Constitution. I feel like they're trying to push him where he's more likely to waive his rights. And it's like, why? Why? Well, he's less likely to choose a jury trial if he looks at them and see like, these people, everybody's view of me is tainted. So maybe I should waive my rights to a jury trial because I'm probably going to be found guilty. And if I'm found guilty, they've already established, the judge, the courts have already established that if I'm found guilty, the penalty is going to be even more harsh because I went to trial. That in itself should, red flag should be going on. Why the freak are you punished more harshly just because you went to trial to make these niggas do their job? But you punish more harshly for taking it to trial. So when it comes time to convict you, you're more likely given or when it's time to give you a sentence, more likely you're given a harsher, longer sentence. Which is the same garbage that they tell people when they're facing charges to begin with. And then they push them to take plea deals. They make you think that if you go to court, you less likely to find victory. You will be convicted. And if you are convicted, you will be punished and sentenced more harsher than you would if you just take this little plea. Then people got to take it to consideration. They're like, dang, I take a plea for 2 years versus 20 years or, you know, whatever they offer. And then probation versus, because then you got to take into consideration, at least if it's something lenient, this stuff interferes with your life outside of the criminal justice system. If you got a job, you in school, that stuff is interfering. So now you're making this very life-changing decision, this very important decision under duress, stress, and motherfreaking doubt. You're more than likely going to take the option that is less beneficial for you. You pleading out benefits everybody. It's the same thing with Diddy. Diddy waiving his rights to a jury trial, it benefits everybody but him. Because now he's more likely to go before the judge. Because you waived the jury trial, now you got a bench trial. So that means you sit before the judge. Probably the same judge that has denied him bail, bond, repeatedly. Maybe I can't even get you to give me bail or bond, and I got the money, okay? And this is the interesting thing about it too, because here in America, several states have been pushing for bail reform where it has been ruled that the requirement of bail or bond is unconstitutional because it's basically stating that if you are poor and cannot afford to get out, then you must stay and be held in pretrial detention, which means that you are awaiting trial if you ever even make it there. This big if. Because majority cases don't go there. They plea out. So if you sitting there forever waiting to go to trial, and then now you finally brought before a judge and then they tell you, well, you can plea out and then you just do your time and then you go on about your business. Or you could take this to trial and this drags out. You ain't getting your trial won't be scheduled nowhere within the near foreseeable future. So you're going to be sitting in jail, non-convicted, awaiting trial. So you 9 times out of 10 going to take the plea because you like, baby, y'all ain't going to give me these years back. Y'all not going to compensate me for the time that I done spent here. And they're not. They're not. They're never compensated. So it's, like I said, it's interesting. This happens to everybody. It happens to everybody. The poor living standards, not having access to lawyers, majority of the people, and I tell you, look on your local jail's census rosters. They're usually, when they put the person's name and information, date of birth, and when they were arrested, what they charges, they also put whether they've been before a judge. And a lot of them things say no. They'll show you the date that they've been in there because it's supposed to show you if they've been before a judge, the date and time that they went before the judge. And a lot of these things don't have it. Why? Because they ain't been before no judges. A lot of these people been sitting there for days, weeks, months, years, bro, and they're not convicted. This is literally violating their due process. So if they're ever by some chance brought before a judge and they say, hey, you can take a plea or you can push this to trial and I'm not gonna schedule you a trial date no time soon. Backed up. Trial is expensive. We don't even have enough staff. Look at your local courts. It tells you who the judges are, how many judges there are. Look at how many prosecutors y'all got. Look at how many public defenders y'all got, niggas. And then look at how many people who reside in your municipality. Yes. And let me tell you this, at least 1% of your entire population is being funneled through the criminal justice system. 9 times out of 10, you got at least 100 times more people being funneled through the criminal justice system than the people that are employed by the criminal justice system. It's crazy. But anyways, we don't expect anything different. This happens every time. Poor people held to pretrial detention, waiting trial forever. Rarely ever get in contact with a lawyer, sitting there forever. Poor, terrible living standards. You got the geriatric community sitting up in there. During COVID, several county jails were supposed to release geriatric communities. Motherfreaking the sick, because of the fact that COVID was increasing the likelihood of people dying and stuff. People still sat in there. And it was supposed to alleviate mass incarceration. It ain't alleviate squat because they ain't even released nobody. Interesting. This happens to everybody. But I feel like they want to push it for a bench trial because they know once they push it for a bench trial, it is over. The same person that denied you bail and bond in a country that we're fighting for bail reform. I got the money. You said it's $50 million to get about it. Nigga, here. You denied me anyways. What are your reasons for denying it? What were the mitigating or what were the aggravating factors that you looked at that made you decide I need to be held in pretrial detention? What were they? This is unfair. I am not supposed to be ripped of my freedom, my liberty, my life, my person. I'm not supposed to be searched nor seized without the process of due process or without the standard of due process being applied. I hope Diddy gets a fair chance. Like, comment, share, subscribe, man. But I hope Diddy gets a fair chance. And I have occasionally, I'm gonna look down because I got my nose down here. But it's nothing different. It's nothing new. And another thing that I think is crazy is when, as we on the topic of stigmas, and how you don't have a fair trial. People who are held on pretrial detention are more likely to be convicted when they are brought through to have their, to go through their trial. And the reason is because when you're sitting in pretrial detention, when you sitting in there, not in freedom, not getting, stimulation from sunlight and the air and fresh air and all this wonderful stuff that's being out in the world, gives you and provides you, you start to like cave in on yourself. Your mental health depreciates, your emotional, health depreciates. You start to look at the world differently. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, Sean P. Diddy Combs was to go into the court appearance, make his court appearance looking slightly deranged in the face, because this is how media works. I can't convince you that he's a criminal without making you believe he's a criminal. And what better way to make you believe that he's a criminal without him being perceived as a criminal? You looking at him and he looked deranged, right? People who go and preach or who are held in pretrial detention, when they actually make their court appearance, a lot of the times they're not even given like regular, citizen clothes. They attend their court appearances with the garment that they're provided by the state. And so just off of that stigma alone it taints the image of your innocence. What happens to innocent till proven guilty? Off the rip, you are looked at as guilty because it's like humans strangely believe that, bad things only happen to bad people. Bad things don't happen to good people. So for something bad to happen to you, you deserved it. You had to have done something. And so when you perceive someone sitting there or standing there before you in their jail attire, and they're facing, whatever charges, criminal charges, even as their jury, you looking at that person in their uniform and you just like, damn, he had to have done it, because why else would he be standing here wearing these clothes? Right? And when you're in jail, you don't get the same luxuries that you get out here. You don't get to comb your hair and put the products in it and doll yourself up. You don't get the chance to clean your face up and stuff. So if you, a man, your hair growing in all scraggly and scuffly, you look, especially as a black man, if you're a woman, you going in there with your hair looking wild and deranged, and now you look like some witch, and this is how they perceive you. Perception is reality. Perception is reality to the ignorant, to the foolish. It's interesting to me that, how this is being played out. There's so many possibilities, and at the same time, it makes me wonder, like, again, it's like, Lord, please give him a fair trial. Because even if he's convicted, I don't believe that the people in power will allow him to live, to live, or even have the ability to access people where he could potentially, from what they believe, order evidence or footage of some of these people who don't want their stuff getting out doing some obscene, immoral things. And so it will behoove of them to incarcerate him, and to keep him incarcerated and to keep him from any, interactions with humans. And to me, that's not justice, because that's selfishly driven. It's like you're not doing it because, you want to be fair and penalize him for the harm that he's committed to the victims. As we've known, it's a misnomer. The people versus blase, blah, blah. Because you notice when you sue the government, when you go back to sue them, it's not you suing the people. It's you suing that entity, that jurisdictional entity. But it's so mind-blowing to me. The secrecy that surrounds this case and the selfishness that surrounds it too, because it's like, I don't expect fairness. There's too many people who are selfishly driven, who may, they want to protect themselves. Clergy people, all types of people, politicians, judicial branch, all them people, right? On top of the fact that, when it comes to holding these positions of power accountable, it rarely happens. And it just makes you wonder, like, is Diddy going to end up another Ghislaine Maxwell or Epstein. And then even Ghislaine Maxwell, she's very interesting because she attended her court with the motherfucking glasses, sunglasses, a scarf, and a hat. And I practically was harassed every time I went to court for having a bonnet on my head. They don't be wanting you to wear nothing on your head. They barely be wanting you to wear religious headwear. And then it has to be religious headwear that's acceptable to the main society, which is white people. Because if me as a Christian, right, in my Bible, it says that my hair is my covering. But if I, decided to shave all my hair off and I had no hair on my head, because according to the Bible, women will cover their heads who ain't have no hair on their head. So I will put a, bonnet on my head because in this scenario, bald, right? These people will tell me to take it off my head because they don't acknowledge my religious, standing. And it's like, what? But then this lady is able to attend her court appearances all with a sunglasses, motherfucking hat, scarf, the whole shebang. We don't even know if that was her. And it's not uncommon for these people to use stunt doubles and stuff. I mean, we know that the presidents have them. We know that celebrities have used them. You've had Usher and Jeremiah. Jeremiah's not even a prominent, big artist. And he had a stunt double go on tour for him and perform for him. So it's like the smokes and mirrors that comes with them. And then the propaganda, it's all like, ew. It's just so ill. And then that media and lobbyists are used to manipulate the public and push these narratives, smokes and mirrors, magicians and whatnot. I mean, it's obvious that misinformation and confusion is desired by these people amongst, the higher people, these elitists amongst us little people. I mean, when you look at the fairness doctrine, right? The fairness doctrine was, enacted in 1980s. I want to say, or excuse me, not 1980s, 1940s. I want to say it was about 1949. Look into it, the fairness doctrine. But it was repealed in the 80s, and the fairness doctrine was literally a legislation that mandated that if you were going to disseminate information to the public, that it had to be well-rounded, where people got all possible perspectives of that topic so they can be well versed on it and make sound decisions. Now with that repealing or that legislation being repealed, it's the complete opposite. I mean, we see it all time and time again that information is pushed and it's just like, what? This is wild. This is obscene. Like this is a lie, this is crazy. And there's no obligation to ensure that the people are well informed, right? And that's why it drives me mother freaking, when I see humans, and I hear humans claim to, again, they placing these expectations on other humans and they say, well, they're journalists or they're this, they're that. Aren't they supposed to do this? Especially when it comes to like journalism. People love to say, well, they researched it, right? Like they're required to fact check. No, they haven't been required to fact check jack squat since the 80s. Jack squat. They could tell you that the sky is purple and it's okay. It's okay. They had to fact check nothing. So it's obvious that these smokes and mirrors are literally being allowed by legislation. Legislation keeps passing that shrinks the rights and the protections of the people and expands the rights and protections of the government. It's insane. But people say that we're not living in a fascist time. I don't know. I don't know. But I do want to say that this ain't no new phenomenon. That's really what I'm going to bring it to. And even these things are happening in your backyard. They are happening in your backyard. This is not just visible in the entertainment industry. This is not just visible in the, the motherfreaking athletes because I mean, we see it when it comes to like gymnasts and stuff, but it's everywhere. It's in the workplace, it's in education, it's in on your jobs, whether in your employment, it's in the military, it's in the carceral systems, it's in the medical field. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. The things that Diddy is accused of doing here in Rochester, we had a lady, there's a case called Klymn, and you'll see that link. Actually, I'll pull it up right now. Klymn v. Monroe County Supreme Court. And in this case, right, this lady, she had purported that this judge had sexually assaulted her for over, oh my goodness, it was a crazy amount of time. It was just like, but yeah, this lady, she ended up suing Monroe County Supreme Court because one of their judges, he, Matthew Rosenbaum, this guy right here, he's one of the higher court judges too. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was Monroe County Supreme Court judge. But she accused him of sexually assaulting her for over a span of like 15 plus years. Like this occurred, it started in 2005 when she first started working there. And this lawsuit initiated in like 2019, right? And she said it went all up into 2019. And so she had said that this dude would mandate that she would give him fellatio. She had to give him fellatio just about every day that she had to go to her job. And you know, he done other things to her, but it was basically sexual force and him using his position of power to solicit these things from her, and basically told her that in order for her to keep her job, she had to satisfy him, you know, relieve his stress. It was a part of her job to relieve his stress. And then she went through the proper channels to report this dude. She went to HR within the unified court system. She went to, you know, her higher ups and all these other people. His higher ups. She even went to another judge. It's this lady, I believe, Tadeo. Yes, Anne Marie Tadeo. She went to her and was telling everybody like, yo, what she was going through. And everybody basically told her like, you either got to do it or go get a different job. There's nothing that can be done because of the position of power that he's in. And the working environment that exists in the court systems, it looks exactly like how it's portrayed in the industry with the casting couch and all these other, I mean, it breeds grounds for like just debauchery. I mean, judges are protected by absolute immunity. The same immunity that everybody perceives Trump to be fighting to get for the president, which it's not Trump, because let me tell you, whether Trump is the president or not, Kamala could win. Absolute immunity will still be applied to the president. It will still be applied to the executive branch. And I'll tell you why, because it's applied to the judicial and the legislative branch. They are already covered by absolute immunity, which basically states that they are exempt from liability for any harm that they cause while they are acting within the duties of their job. This has already existed amongst legislative branch, the judicial branch. All they doing is just catching up for the executive branch and making them all equal in a sense. But it's one of them things is I'm not going to step on your toes because I don't want you stepping on mine. That's why this sense of checks and balances is strange. That's why we hear Clarence Thomas, nothing comes from him, even though he is accused of bribery, not motherfreaking disclosing where he gets all his extra, you know, monetary donations from and all this other stuff. He's done so many what they would consider immoral, even sometimes, you know, unethical and even treading on criminal. But there's nothing. I mean, you don't even hear coverage over it that often. It's just diddy. So, but there's protections that's placed over these people that when they perform in their duties, there's no harm that comes to them, right? This lady, I mean, I've seen it where I've endured constitutional violations at the hands of a judge. I go to the judicial commission of misconduct, and I file a complaint against the judge. And these people, I tell them, like, I have, evidence to prove, because I have audio recording to show, like, this dude violated me. You can hear it, right? And they had still ruled that they did a little investigation, and they ruled that there was no grounds of misconduct found. How? Why? What? Nigga, that don't even make any sense. So I was just like, whatever. I'm going to just do what I got to do. But this happens on a regular basis. Majority of the complaints that are filed against judges, lawyers, legislative branches, Congress, motherfucking, your county legislator. When complaints are filed against these people, majority of the time, nothing comes from them. Nothing. They're not reprimanded, not in the way that you think. If anything, they might get a talking to, but nothing. And then the complaints that are filed against them aren't even made public. You know nothing about it. So if a man is accused, if she didn't take this civil case and just decided to file a complaint with the Judicial Commission on misconduct, we would have never knew that this dude was out here accused of raping. And she goes into details, raping her, sexually assaulting her, And would have never knew. Because complaints made to these committees and these commissions in regards to these people are not disclosed to the public. And in fact, they are made confidential. They're not disclosed to the public until many a times they resort into criminal charges. And it's not even just the criminal charge, but it has to a lot of times lead to a conviction before it's made public. Other than that, we'll never know, because it's to protect them from slander and libel and defamation, so they can do their jobs and perform with their discretion and blah, 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 blah. Where the freak is our coverage? But like I was saying, the relationships amongst the courts, they're just as toxic as we've heard about the working relationships that exist with Diddy and his staff. The harm and the danger that he was putting them in, and him, supposedly coercing them into having sex with them and manipulating them and all this. The same stuff applies. I mean, when you listen to, or when you read what happened in this Klymn versus Monroe County Supreme Court case, you'd be like, what the freak? And then there's even research out here that the work environments are so toxic. Like, these people go to work in fear because the judge, the same dude that can sign a warrant for your arrest or search or whatever, and that presides over very important matters throughout, where you live, this person is also your boss. And majority of the staff at courthouses are women, and majority of the judges are men. So the dynamics there it's crazy. It's not much different to Diddy. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in the schools. It's at your job. It's everywhere. It was heavy in the military. I could tell you all types of stories, but that's a time, that's a story for another time. It's just, again, I just hope and I pray. I just hope and pray that Diddy he receives a fair trial, because it's off the rip. It's not fair for him. It's not. Despite how I feel about him, it's not. People think because you got a bunch of charges thrown on you, you had to do what you're accused of. No, that's the prosecutor's job. That's the police job. The police job is to throw a bunch of charges onto you, charge you with a bunch of offenses, so that way the prosecutor, they could look at, the offenses that you are charged and this accumulation of circumstantial evidence that they have, and they can say, okay, I confidently feel that I can get a conviction out of this. AKA, I confidently believe that I can convince their public defender, because majority of the people are dealing with public defenders, you know what I'm saying? Maybe their defense team if they a little savvy on the money, but majority of the time, public defenders, I can convince them to convince their defendant, their client, to accept this guilty plea. And the the defense attorneys, especially public defenders, a lot of times are going to go along with the prosecutor, because one, defense attorneys, when you have to hire a firm that isn't constantly indulged in criminal matters, it's harder for them to know, because the law is constantly changing, right? So there's pros and cons to getting a defense attorney versus using a public defender. Public defenders are well versed about criminal justice matters. However, they are not well paid and they are overworked. They are stuck there majority of the time for 3 years. And once that little 3 years is up, they is out of there. Okay. Out of there. Most of them just start off as public defenders for experience. It is what it is. Prosecutors become prosecutors so they could transition into politics. We see that with common law. So there's pros and cons to them, but at the end of the day, ain't none of them your friend. The decision that any of them make, and when it comes to passing down the information to you, they're going to construct it in a way that it sounds like it would benefit you, but it really benefits them. But it's like, come on, because I'm your public defender. I got 99 other people cases that I'm working on in addition to yours by myself, and I don't even get paid $60,000 a year. This is what they're really saying to you without saying it. Take this. So these people aren't your friend. The prosecutors aren't your friend. The judges aren't your friend. No matter how much they kiki, they try to bond with you over y'all graduate from the same high school. Them is not your friend, okay? When you are funneled through that system, they make money. Unless you're indigent, then you're more of a nuisance. They're like, let's get this nigga out of here because I'm not trying to take this case to trial on government funds. When I pushed, these people kept throwing pleas after pleas after pleas after me. And I'm like, nope, taking the trial. I'm taking the trial. I'm taking the trial. I'm taking the trial. After 17 months, it never even went to trial. It just fell apart because they niggas ain't had no case. This is why I tell you, go to trial, because 9 times out of 10, you are more likely to have your case fall apart because they don't have a case. They don't have a case to begin with. This is why they depend on your plea bargains. And then they know that they don't have a case. So they don't want to waste their time nor funds because they ain't got it to begin with. Okay. In addition to the fact, they just don't want to do it. It's like that saying that niggas want a paycheck, but nobody want to work. It's one of them things. People tend to go the route that causes the less pain. And for these people, it's like, hey, let's get this plea bargain in here. They're not trying to waste government funds on you. Okay? They ain't. Even though they don't mind taking your stuff and using your stuff to fund the government, they don't want to provide it for you. Okay? People love to talk about their tax dollars. What about those dollars that get taken by the government? That is really your money, hard-earned money, that is now funding the government through what we call forfeiture funding. Asset forfeiture or civil forfeiture is when the police can take anything on you, your money, your property, your house, your estate, your cars, whatever, under just the idea that you committed a crime. There's no extraneous, standard of proof. It don't require them to arrest you. It don't even require them to take you to court. To them, it's allowed. You got a wad of cash that you've been saving in your motherfucking, your safe in your house, and you trying to go transport it to the bank so you can add it, but you done got pulled over for a traffic violation and the police see this big old duffel bag. Now they just like, oh, baby, those guns. Now they want to use, I utilize my plain view, reasonable suspicion. You see, the standard is so low. Now they taking your money, or if they take your house, your car, they either keep it or they sell it for them. They sell it and they make some money off of it. And then they turn around and fund the government with it. Forfeiture funding. So all of them programs and services that these niggas keep promising you that they about to bring, and all these new means of employment they about to bring, funded by the assets they forfeiting from you. That link is also in the bottom. And just so you can see it, asset forfeiture, just so you can see. ACLU, okay? They help people with their civil liberties. But basically, forfeiture was originally presented as a way to cripple large-scale criminal enterprises by diverting their resources. But today, aided by deeply flawed federal and state laws, many police departments use forfeiture to benefit their bottom lines, making seizures motivated by profit rather than crime fighting. For people whose property has been seized through civil asset forfeiture, legally regaining such property is notoriously difficult and expensive, with costs sometimes exceeding the value of the property. So once your stuff is taken, it takes forever to even try to get it back. It costs you a lot of money. With the total value of the property seized increasing every year, they trying to fight it because they know this is unconstitutional. And forfeiture is also attached to the RICO. Look at this, Racketeer, Influence, and Corrupt Organization Statute. Forfeiture is where the government seizes your property where they believe that it's connected to legal activity. You know what I'm saying? And this was created during a time, or really, made prevalent during the times of the war on drugs. But all this is included down there is civil forfeiture. Civil forfeiture allows the government, typically the police, because you got to remember the police, and it's strange, the three governing branches. We've always been told that it's the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. Where in any of them three branches does the police fall? Judicial? Many people would believe that it was the judicial branch, but they don't even fall under them. They fall under nobody. This is why they got a union. The police ain't nothing but they're security guards for the wealthy, the elitists, literally. You ever go into some of them stores? I've never really seen them too much here in New York, but I see it a lot when I go to the West Coast and I go to like Ross's and Marshall's and stuff. They always got this like asset security guard that's there just to make sure people ain't stealing any of the merchandise. That's literally what the police are for, elitists in the government. That's literally what they're for. So that's why it's usually the police seizing your stuff. The government's not going to take it. And I think it's crazy because even the government protects you. And this is what I'm telling you, this is why I think it's crazy, that the government protects you from unlawful searches and seizures, right? The police aren't, according to the Constitution, considered a part of the government, but they're penalized almost equivalent as the government, right? You can sue the police when they violate your constitutional rights, equivalent to suing, say, for instance, a judge. However, they don't have the same immunities that the three branches have, which is now will be for executive branch. They don't have absolute immunity. What they have is like qualified. It's like, we get a little bit of something, but we don't get the protections y'all got. They was like, nah, we got to make the people feel like they get some kind of justice. We're going to protect them from coming for us, but we're going to make them think that y'all police are a part of us, even though y'all just asset protection, right? And we're going to make them think y'all a part of us. So then when y'all do stuff at our beck and call, right, they'll think it's y'all part of the government. So they'll sue y'all for constitutional violations, leaving us free. And we got y'all every now and then. You know what I'm saying? Y'all, when you deal with some of these people, if y'all catch something, you reasonably believe that they, they got some assets on them that they gained illegally, take it, forfeit it. Civil forfeiture. Government is dirty, man. Dirty. These people aren't your friends. None of them. None of them. And if you think about it, majority of the police are made up of people that's from these impoverished neighborhoods. These niggas come from rural America. They come from these towns and these villages that when you drive through, they look like sundown towns. These niggas, they don't have no employment. That's why the city be so packed, because you got niggas driving 10 plus miles away just to get to the city to have a job, because in Buttsville, of the middle of nowhere, rural part of New York, Carolina, all that, niggas ain't got nothing there but a Dollar General and a motherfucking True Value store. You see what I'm saying? So, and it might have a Mickey D's. It might have a Mickey D's. And a Dunkin' Donuts. Occasionally you might catch a Dunkin' Donuts there, but And that's not usually in them towns. Venice, the little tiny ones where they barely got a population of 5,000. They don't be having nothing there. So these are the people that make up the police force. They're like what you would typically consider like hillbillies, you know? And then they're like, hey, we'll pay you well for these jobs. So now you can get out of your hickvilles, your hick towns. And now you can motherfucking move to the suburbs. You know what I'm saying? You can move to these places that it's not necessarily in the city, but it's right outside the city. But you're not in rural America where all you poor, you know, redneck, white trash cousin folks at, you know, kinfolk. You ain't got to be all up on them. But you ain't got to be all up on the people you arrested either. This is how the government work, man. That's how they work. It's all the same. It's even in your backyard. And I show y'all with the Klymn versus Monroe County Supreme Court. This is in my motherfucking backyard. Okay. Rochester is in Monroe County. He was a judge presiding over us. And he ain't the only one. He's just the only one so far that got sued. But I tell y'all all this. I say all that to say, don't trust these people. They ain't your friends. The very things that you think that is happening amongst the rich people is happening in your backyard. Do not think because these people have accolades, accomplishments, they done developed some degrees, they done picked up a little money, you know what I'm saying? They gotta develop a little podcast or what have you, that they are anything different than you. These niggas are just fancy looking pawns, okay? They are just like you. They just got dolled up by the motherfucking elitists to manipulate you and convince you that what you see before you ain't really what you see. This is why the Bible tells you to not walk by sight, but walk by faith. Don't look on an outward appearance, because looking on an outward appearance will jack you up every single time. Some of the world's greatest serial killers are very charming. They're charming, approachable type guys. You know what I'm saying? Handsome. That's how people deceive you. If they can make you think that they aren't who they really are, if they don't look like how if they don't present themselves how they are on the inside, they got you. These people aren't your friends. The court ain't your friends. The motherfucking the workers in there ain't your friends. And please don't believe that just because of the status of whoever it is investigating, don't assume that these people are always credible and legitimate in their efforts. Just because the feds is looking into you don't mean they got a case. And even if they did, it don't mean they got a solid one. They fish just like the rest of us, okay? They develop conspiracy theories just like the rest of us. Do not believe the hype. They are just as susceptible as the human flaws as you are. Okay? Please don't believe the hype. And then I end here, because I really want to express this when it comes to circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is the equivalent to conspiracy theories. You're just making inferences. These guesses that seem to be, feasible. They say, okay. It's plausible. It's plausible. Even witness statements have been deemed incredible in regards to the court systems, because when you really think about it, a lot of the people that are convicted, that when they are brought before a trial, like I told you, these people, they are hemmed up with the use of circumstantial evidence. And majority of the time is witness statements. In witness statements, think about yourself. When you have a headache, when you tired, do you perform well? When you hurt, when you're hungry, do you perform well? Is your memory as well as you think? Do you pay attention to every little thing? Do you remember every little thing? Somebody say something, or you see something, or you hear something, you realize that a memory that you had been slightly altered as well, huh? You wear glasses and they had your glasses, and then now they asking you, did you see something? But you require the use of glasses to be able to see. But you like, yeah, I seen it. And ready to tell somebody what you seen. What you seen besides mother freaking blurries from your astigmatisms. You know? I'm going to end here. There was a study conducted. It was a gorilla test. The test was, these people were put into this group and they had to pass around this ball. And they just had to pass around the ball. And they didn't realize that they were being tested in regards of their memory, right? So they're under the impression like, oh, we're just supposed to focus on passing this ball around to each other, and they're passing the ball. And walks out this man in a literal gorilla suit. And he walks around and he's, you know, moving around, jigging around and whatnot. And then he dips out. And so it's ceased. So once they stop it, they're like, hey, you know, they basically checked with them, like, how many of y'all recall seeing a man walking around in a gorilla suit? It wasn't many of them. I think it probably may have been maybe one person who said they recall seeing a man walking around in a gorilla suit. Nobody else recalled seeing that man in a gorilla suit. They even rewind the video and showed you that this man was walking around in what seemed like a relatively noticeable fashion. But majority, and when I say majority, it's well over 50% of the participants that did not notice this man walking around in a gorilla suit while they were, you know, busy passing the ball to each other. They were so focused on their hand and eye coordination, they didn't even notice the man walking by. So if you were supposed to So if you supposedly go and ask them, hey, because the crime occurred, hey, did you see a crime occurred in here? There was a man in a gorilla suit. Or even if they don't even say no leading information like that, telling you about a man in a gorilla suit, 9 times out of 10, you won't be of any use. You could probably just go make up some junk because you think you remember something, but you don't remember nothing. And this is one of the reasons why witness statements, they're not reliable. They're not credible in a court of law. So I'll end here. Cursed is any man who puts his trust in man. Put your trust in the Most High God. And any man that don't believe on the Son of the one true living God, I'm telling you, you're done. Okay. I love you. God bless. Peace. Good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful people. Good afternoon, good evening. No matter what time it is, just know this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. As always, God is good, and He is good all the time.